Bonjour and hello from Australia. My name is Paul Painter from Peclet Technology, open data soft partner in Australia and New Zealand. I've got the pleasure to introduce you to one of our good clients, Matthew Szymczak. He's a smart cities lead from the city of Greater Geelong. Now, Geelong is the second largest local government area in the region of Victoria, Australia. It boasts a population of over 250,000 and strives to be a leader in innovative and creative urban management by developing and adopting new technologies. Geelong Smart City team has recently taken out a MAB Technology Award, winning the award for Best Collaboration and Partnership project for their open data portal called the Geelong Data Exchange. They were also a finalist in this year's Australian IoT Hub Awards for Smart City. Welcome, Matt. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Paul.
Good.
Thank you all for having me. And what I might do is jump into our presentation and talk a little bit about what we've done and where Geelong is and how we use Open Data Soft. So a little bit about Geelong for those in the audience that don't know. Obviously, we're at the bottom of Australia, not right at the bottom, but down in Victoria, just next to Melbourne. We are one of the largest municipalities or local government areas in Australia, and we have a revenue of 450 million and about $2.5 billion in an asset. So if you think about it from a data perspective, there's quite a lot. One of the other things that we did that pushes us along is in 2017, we did quite an extensive community consultation, which developed our clever creative vision that says by 2047, Greater Geelong will be internationally recognised as a clever and creative city. And this is something that we aspire towards, and hence our data initiatives play into this role. Interestingly enough, we've been in open data for quite some time now. It's probably going on 6 or 7 years. And we recognized probably around 2018 that we started to really come across some challenges in this particular space. And what I've sort of presented here was a number of really obvious ones, but what we're really finding that open data was just there for data's sake. You know, we weren't really getting the traction that we want. The people and the mindsets weren't quite there within the organization nor our community. We struggled to collaborate with people. The whole governance issue around it, we really couldn't visualize the data. You know, a lot of people just saw like spreadsheets and CSV files and raw data, but they couldn't really make sense of that. We couldn't quite integrate it well with other things, and the awareness and the transparency of it was quite lacking. So in that particular space, we really started to look around at the market to say, what is the next level? How do we move from just publishing data sets to creating a more dynamic model that's a lot more engaging for our community and also for our staff and partners that we worked with? Enter Open Data Soft, actually, and Peclet. What we saw was one of our smaller rural local governments utilize this platform and thought, actually, this has got real potential for us, because it started to really tick all the boxes for what we were looking for. And we weren't just wanting to share data, but we really wanted to move to that exchange model, something that we were seeing other larger smart cities around the world doing, and specifically Amsterdam, when we looked at their model and how they were approaching a data exchange. And so for us, this ticked all our boxes, and it really started us to start that creative thinking around how can we push the boundaries in sharing data and exchanging information with our community and our businesses and other agencies that we work with, but also with local government. For us, it was really quite a quick and seamless implementation. It took all of 2 months. We were really able to get in there and ingest really a lot of real-time data, which we had, as well as probably roughly around 300 data sets that we were already ready to publish. It was really simple to configure. We had the experience of how data worked already, so we understood the logic of it. We also had sort of the HTML and coding skills to push that out there. And plus, it was scalable. We were really able to scale and provide that rich visualization that we were looking for. So this was really a good win for us to be able to demonstrate very early on that we can do things very quickly and then look to scale into the future with that. limited resources that we had at the time. For us, the outcomes and benefits were many, and they've continued in that. We've had our platform in play now for probably close to 18 months, and it's really culminated in a lot of interest, a lot of use, and as Paul said, we've won awards in that. We've also been able to really use it as an engagement tool, because there are people that don't really understand data or are not really in that space can actually get out there and quickly get some information and visualize it really quickly. Plus, we've got the security to be able to share that information and exchange it with our other partners that we work with, as well as integrate all our IoT in there, which is really scaling up for us in this particular space. The real valuable point, though, has been in collaboration, that we've been able to subdomain it across other local governments that within our area. And we're really looking to the future to be able to scale this across all Victorian governments, which there's 79 at the moment. And we're looking at a pilot project on how we're going to work that model into the future, because we see that we all have different data sets, but combined together create some real rich information for the state of Victoria and what we can do from a local government segment. And really the value of what we're looking for is to turn the data into information and information insights. And I love to use this quote, Paul, because I think really that's the goal of what we're trying to achieve in the data space. It is about creating insights, not just for the organization, but for our community and the business community, and especially with the COVID pandemic, we've really been able to share some information with our businesses and gather information back, which has started to be really valuable for us in this particular space. So that's just a quick sort of snapshot of Geelong and what we've done. You know, we're familiar with the open data platform, but we really see that this is just a stepping stone for us, and there's some big plans for us to come into the future and how we scale that.
Yeah, no, that's great, Matt. So I suppose following on from the collaboration, you mentioned that you're sort of working with other councils in your local area, and I think you mentioned sort of one of the governing bodies. You know, how's that travelling along? Are you working with sort of any other councils or organisations to help sort of build that data collaboration?
Yeah, I think it's really what's sort of unique with local government is that we're not competitive anyway. You know, we have our own jurisdictions, and 80% of the things we do the same. So essentially we're collecting the same data, but we all do it in slightly different ways. And what we've sort of seen and worked with some of our neighbours on is that I can take my list of 46,000 registered pets, which is quite significant. You know, that's a lot of dogs and cats down in Geelong. And Ballarat can take their list of registered pets, and then we can easily put that together in here and really show some rich information and understanding of how animals transgress from pet ownership across our municipality to the other ones. And that's just sort of one example, but we're really looking across the state. And I am chair of MAV Technology, so I have the ability to work with all the other local governments in our region, and we're facing the similar challenges, and this platform really presents an opportunity for us. And so we're looking at piloting that one on how we take what does all the animals look like across the region? How do we combine all of our walking trails? How do we combine all of our asset information and those other rich data sets that you know, Australia is small in the scheme of things. Geelong's not a little big town when we compared to big cities around the world, but collectively as regions and as a state, we have a lot of information and a lot of data that we can share that our communities and other partners can get in there and really take some rich insights from.
Yeah, no, that's great. Obviously, you can sort of take that further and look at sort of even waste data and with COVID, what's going on, sort of people sort of counting data for public areas, etc. So with I suppose with the sharing the model, are there any other use cases that people have used your platform? I think there was something around bees for backpacks or something where local
Yeah,
education system?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of the surprising things, and like I said, I think when we set out, we were just looking to replace our data platform, but where we've sort of arrived to now is a much more rich and engaging experience. So, the local technical school that work with all the students or the secondary school students. So this are teenagers. They really started to look at a program on how do we start to inch problem solving and data solving skills within the school curriculum. And we started working around our platform, and they used that to be able to get real information from a city. And we worked with other partners and that were doing technology on tracking bee migration. So the kids were able to put this information there and use our tool sets and do problem solving with real information. And that was really gaining attention. And that was one point that we weren't quite looking for, but we found that education sector has really been involved with us over the last 6 months and really want to get more use out of this and want to participate in that. So we see this as a real benefit to be able to deliver real city information into our schools to allow them to problem solve, how can we address waste management? What are the things that our kids think about in that particular space? And here's some data that you can go out and play with essentially and use those skills to try and sort of uncover what might be there in what we have is something like 110,000 tons of waste a year that's collected. So that information's put out there for our people to access.
Yeah, fantastic. It sounds like you're really developing this open data portal, but not you're sort of bringing data in from multiple different sources. So you're tackling not only just IoT, but you're tackling your geospatial team. Economics people can look at the financial information. I suppose you've got all this good things happening, but I suppose what's next? What are you thinking about?
What's next?
That
Yeah, look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big question. I think really what we're seeing at the moment is obviously there's a strong focus on COVID for us and understanding business and people movement. But really what for us is that we have a lot of data around assets, predominantly. It's quite easy data to put out there, but we're really moving into the IoT space and real-time and transactional data. And that's where we see the real value of this coming to line, especially when we start to partner with other agencies such as our energy and utility. So the water usage and the power consumption and those sorts of things that come through, combined with what we see in our parks and gardens. So you touched on pedestrian movements there. So we collect a lot of information around pedestrian movements and car parking and that sort of information that we publish, as well as going out to other open data sources such as our public transport. We can sort of bring all of those things in and allow people to create a lot richer visualizations to get that understanding and insight that we can't see. In a lot of cases, it's quite soloed in other agencies and we can't find that. So our future goals are really sort of aimed at trying to collaborate with a lot more external organizations within Geelong and other government agencies that sort of feed into that pipeline that really help us bring all of that information in together so that it helps us create the picture. We can't collect it all. And I think that's really the concept of the exchange is how can you have these exchanges of data to create rich insight, not just for us, but for everyone that's in that particular space.
Yeah, great. So you obviously been on this journey a few years now, and you've learned a lot, and you've got a really good offering of what you're doing, not only internally and business partners, but opening this up to sort of the citizens. I suppose if other councils or local governments looking at going down this journey as well, did you have any any recommendations or something that you could sort of help these people along?
Yeah, look, I think it's a journey that a lot of people have started. If not, they've thought about it or they're a long way down that. Interesting enough, you talked about sort of how a community accesses it, and the question there I could see in the chat is it used by journalists? One of the things we do find is that our local media are one of our highest users in that, and they constantly sort of trawl through that information looking for things for us. So, that's part of the transparency nature of it. If there's something to be found where we're not doing our job, well, that's what we want them to do. We want them to keep our honest. So I think it's about being the fact that It is easy to do. You know, we do have a lot of plans around how we maintain it. A lot of the data that we push out there happens automatically now. We've got the integration system from our front end all the way through into our back end and our collection of data sources. And our main goal is to make sure that when we do these, they are automatically generated, and the data that goes through in real time can go through in real time. And I think that that's the key thing to try and actively maintain it. It's quite easy for councils to go and start to go, right, what are your high value data sets, and create those files and put them out there. And generally that's the easiest way to go, because you can create it, publish it, and start to see what comes from it. But the real goal is to have plans in how you plan to utilize that and what the value of that data is for your community. And a lot of the larger councils that are leading are starting to really demonstrate that in business cases, that there is value to be had in pushing this out there for the communities to access.
Yeah, great. So just looking at another question here. Do you have any concrete plans to actively maintain or create an open data community in Geelong?
Yes, we do. So we do have an active community. There is quite a lot of academics in that space as well as data people themselves. So we have quite a young and upstarting startup and enterprise community, and there are quite a lot that actually look to our data to create apps and so forth with. So it's very much, we've got plans at the moment of trying to formalize that community to try and sort of encourage them, to push them along to create their own sort of connections and boundaries, so that they can sort of go forth and start to do it themselves, you know. But our part of our role is to actively promote that, and specifically the success that we've had with the schools and our students, that we know that passion is there. And a lot of students, sort of university students, are members of our portal, and they actively use it for assignments. And we also work with we peer mentor local university students from a data analyst perspective. So we set challenges for them as part of their curriculum, and they use our data, and that's great, because that provides us inside back that we don't have the skills for in-house to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see any more questions coming through, but I've got one that sort of goes back to sort of the beginning of this, and you mentioned around the small councils like Southern Grampians also becoming part of your data exchange. So obviously these smaller councils have different budgets, and they don't quite sort of have some of the funding that some of the larger ones do. So where do you see your role in sort of supporting some of those other smaller councils?
Yeah, sure. I think our philosophy has quite been in that we are resourced to do that. You know, some of these councils don't have the likes of me on staff or on my position. So by us sort of creating those pathways and opportunities, we really do share a lot of that skills and experience out with those communities. I must say, though, some of the smaller ones actually are doing a lot better in this sort of transformation than we are. They don't have as much red tape as big organisations such as ourselves. You know, we have nearly 3,000 sort of employees. So there's a lot that we have to go through, particularly, but we do have a role in playing in that particular space, and we encourage and share as much as we can where we can with our colleagues, and we do really collaborate quite a lot. So it's great to see more of in there, because some of the best insight comes from the smaller ones that are looking at it from a different perspective, that gives us the new insight to that.
Yeah, great answer. I think there's another question's come through. Do you have any indicators emerging with the data you collect about the efficiencies of the smart city regarding the political goals?
Yeah, look, that's something that we've just started in. We haven't really published anything in that particular space, but we've recently, early this year, adopted quite an aggressive sustainability framework, and we're just about to release our smart city framework, which almost complement that. And we're aligning a lot of our goals to the global reporting indicators, and we really want to publish that out via this platform, so that not only the city itself, as in the council, is showing what we're doing and how we're meeting those goals. But other organisations in the city have a platform to put their data in and measure as well. So the city as a whole can indicate how they're going in those particular spaces, because that's the equal playing field. Let's not reinvent what we're doing. You know, UNESCO and the others really have, and United Nations have those goals already in there, like the SDGs, etc.
Yeah, great. I think we're getting close to time, but yeah, to summarise, obviously you're doing great things in the smart city space and in the open data space with Open Data Soft. I think you're definitely in the forefront in Australia. So, and I suppose to finish off, if you had any sort of further comments before, we have another question coming.
There's one last question there that no, we don't specifically publish any algorithms or codes at this particular stage, but that is something that is on our to-do list. Like we have got this sort of wish list of things that we want, but at the same time we're quite conscious of in terms of some of the privacy and those sorts of things that we guard quite closely. But these are things that will come for us into the future.
Fantastic. I think that might be us, Matt, but it's been, yes, it's been a pleasure chatting to you again, and I suppose keep up the good work.
Yeah. Look, and again, thanks for having me. It's been great, and it's been a privilege. You know, it's just past 9 o'clock here down in Australia, and obviously it's morning over there in Europe. But if anyone has any other questions, my details and email address is on the screen, and we're happy to sort of have a conversation and share our learnings and learn from others, which I find these forums great for. So it's always best to share what we know and see what other cities are doing.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Paul.